Yeah, we're live. A 4-7. Nailed it. Tonight we're going to be doing some cool stuff. I've got a set of cylinder head, or a cylinder head, over here, already hooked up on the flow bench. That is the 3800 Series 2 L67 cylinder head, stock one from a wrecking yard. And I'm doing a video, which is going to be really cool, and I'm excited about it. And I wish I had more information for you on it, on the results. But here, excuse me, but here's the plan. So I'm going to flow test this stock head, just the way that it came from the wrecking yard. The one thing that I did do is I took the head apart and we tried to clean it as best we could, clean the valves and stuff. And then I also lapped the valves in because this particular head, they were leaking already, so they were kind of bad. The thing probably needs a valve job, might need seat, but I just lapped the valves in to kind of give us an idea of what they flow. And you know, ideally, and I'll mention this in the video when I do it, is that if you have a brand new set of heads and a factory fresh, seat and valve job on the head, on the valves and stuff, you might get a little bit more flow. But this is what we get when we go to the wrecking yard. That's what you get. That's what I get. That's what everybody gets. You never know. You might get a good set. You might not. They may have to be redone. But regardless, what I'm going to do is I have them up on the flow bench. And when people start arriving, we'll go ahead and I'll flow test them. We'll go through. What I did was I took the valve seals off so we could go all the way to 600 lift. Otherwise, the retainer to seal clearance, there was an issue of me not being able to get to 500 lift. All I could get out of it was about 530 or 535 or something. So now we can measure it, we can flow test it from 600, 500, 400, 300, 200, 100, and they also do 50 thousandths just to see how it's acting like right off the seat. We can go through all of that, and the setup is pretty nice. I could even do, maybe if we have time, do a quickie exhaust flow on it as well, because it's an inline valve deal, so the assembly just slides over. All I have to do is hold we have an exhaust pipe that I hold on it. I don't have a pipe dedicated for that head, obviously, but I can hold a pipe in place so we can get a pretty good idea. Besides, when I hold it, it allows me to kind of move it around and see if I can, optimize the flow. I can make it whistle and, do all kinds of tricks. But so we'll flow that, and then the idea is, obviously I'm going to have them professionally ported. But before that, what I would like to do, and what I think would be good for everybody out there, is what if I tried my hand at porting those heads? Doing the things, because I've never ported that head, and I have very little porting experience. I'm not a head porter. So, but knowing that, what I would do to it would just be a common sense approach. So I'm going to try my hand at, and it's iron too, which is I'm not enthusiastic about. An aluminum head would obviously be much easier to port. But so I don't know anything. I'm going to do it ahead for the first time. So it'd be an awful lot like what you guys would do in your backyard. I mean, almost anybody can port the head. It takes just a couple of, like I'm probably just going to use one cutter because that's what guys have. And then maybe cartridge roll it to make it look somewhat pretty, let's say, just so that it looks like it's been ported. If nothing else, I could say, hey, look, you could wave your fingers around it and go, ooh, it looks all fancy. But the question is, if I do that, I'll tell you what I have planned, because I've already looked at the head and I kind of have an idea of where I would approach it. I don't know what a professional porter like Eric or Brian Tooley or one of these guys would do, but I know how I would approach it. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to unshroud the chamber a little bit. It's not bad. And I only have a little bit of room to work with because we're talking about 30 or 40 thousandths difference between the bore size and the chamber size. And then I can go out to the gasket, which gives us a little bit more room, but I want to unshroud, both the intake and the exhaust valves. Looking in the bowl area, which is where I would go next, obviously we're going to try to dress up the short turn radius if it's got a sharp edge on it. Sometimes when they do factory valve jobs and when they're doing this stuff for the seats, the cutter can leave some sharp edges and stuff. So we want to just kind of knock that down. I'm not looking at trying to remove a whole bunch of material, especially on an iron head. I don't want to do that. I'm not even going to, scribe up a gasket on it. I'm just going to radius the edge on the inlet of the intake port and go in, and where I see stuff that I think might be obvious, I'm going to go in and address that. But, you know, mostly the bowl, the short turn, and doing the chamber work. And I'll do the same thing on the exhaust. On the exhaust side, I noticed after pulling the valves that it looks like the transition from the seat to the bowl, just like with the intake, but more so on the exhaust, it looks like the transition, it looks like the bowl is a lot smaller than the seat is. So I think that there might be some gains there, and I'll take a look at that. But you know, again, I don't want to ruin the port by not knowing what I'm doing. And, you know, in all honesty, that's the way that it is going in. But I think that there's some stuff that I can do. And if I do this stuff and not spend a ton of time in it, like I'm thinking I could probably do what I need to do in like an hour, which would mean obviously 6 hours if you did all of them. I'm only going to do one and airflow test it. So my question for you guys is, knowing that that's what I'm going to do, what kind of flow gains do you think that we could get from that sort of stuff? What do you think, you know, the average guy can get? Now and what I'm going to cover in the video is very important to note, that you can do a little bit of work and get really big gains initially. And then, like anything else, like with horsepower, you put a cam in, you get big gains. Okay, well now, you know, all the other things that you do, unless you add nitrous or a blower or a turbo, the gains get smaller and smaller. So the same thing is with airflow. I'm just looking at getting the low-hanging fruit, basically. You know, I'm going to get the easy stuff, and then to go up from there, you know, takes a much better guy. And the other thing it takes is, even if I knew what I was doing, it takes a lot more work. So Brule always tells me, yeah, you can get 80% of the airflow gain for 20% of the work. That's the first stuff. But the next bit takes 80% of the work, and you only get 20% of the gain. So that's his math, which is, you know, he's awesome. So I think that that's probably the case. So I'm excited to try it because I've never done it before, and I'd like to see what happens and see how much flow we can get. But let's take a walk over there. Maybe we can flow test a stock one and kind of see where we are. What does it say? A golf ball surface. Yeah. So you want me to dimple the iron head. And I think I mentioned this earlier that I won't do this, but I would like to, especially after looking at how bad the valves were. Even if we just putting the factory valve job back on it, I don't think is ideal. I think if we put new seats in it and did a valve job and did a multi-angle valve job, I think a guy that he knew what he was doing could pick up some good flow from that. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just doing the razor blade rebuild. So I just basically cleaned off a gasket. We put the valves in. We put lapping compound on the valves. I did it with the drill a bunch of times to get them to seat again, because especially the exhaust valves were both pitted and rusty. So they were not good. The chambers look like that they're okay. I probably will take a little bit of time and just clean those off. But I'm going to have to work in the chamber anyway, because if I want to unshroud the valve, we're going to be working on the outer edge of that. And the other thing I want to do just a little bit on the for the intake valve is it gets a little bit close-ish to the bump for the spark plug. So I'm going to take away a little bit there. Again, I don't want to take away a bunch because I don't know what I'm doing, and I just want to see if all of that stuff is going to work. And then what I'll do is do the porting, clean the head up, put it back up on the flow bench, and then find out if, if that was all just a bunch of wasted time. Because again, going in, we know I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll see if I wasted my time or if the average guy can actually get some good power. So that'll be a video, because I'm going to work on that tonight. That will be a video that I should be able to post tomorrow if everything goes well. But I won't be able to do the porting until after, obviously, we flow test the steel. So let's take a look over here. We can walk over and we can get some flow testing going. So what do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think. How much do you think that this stock 3800 V6 head is going to flow? What's this thing going to flow at? What's it going to flow at 600 or 500, whatever we think it's going to make peak flow at? So we can set you guys down. And And then what I can do is I can come over and grab you guys maybe. Oh yeah, I could set you up right over here. Da, 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 da. So you guys are going to watch this for a little bit while I get my tripod set up. You guys can be all tripoded up, Buttercup. There we go. In your little holder here. Move you back a little bit. There we go. So what I'll do is I'll start flow testing, and then I can bring you guys in and show you what the numbers are, so you know kind of what's going on. We'll see. Right now I have it set up, like right now I have it set up for 600 valve lift. It's all the way down, and then I can just back this off and go to 500, 400, 300, probably not down to 200 without changing the flow range, but we'll see what happens. So right now we're starting out at 600 valve lift. So what we've done is gone 600 lift, 500, 400, 300, and I think I went down to 200. But I've got to change the flow scale now to get the last two. We'll get the 100 and the 50 number. So we'll go down to a different flow range. We'll go down to flow range 2. So we'll see what it flows at 100 or 100 lift. $50,000. Now you can see yourself. Oh, you're going to go in an infinite loop now. So I'm going to take you off. Off your tripod. Set you back up. So we can go over and chat about the results. Okay, so what'd you guys think? Low to mid 180s at it flowed better at 500 lift than it did at 600. It's kind of stalling out. Not surprising given the camshaft and stuff that they run in there. The port is really noisy. You need to fix that. Good ports are quiet. Yep, grooves, that's a pretty good guess. Yeah, I was talking to Brule about the E7 TE heads. Those things only flow 160 or something. They flow a good bit less than these do. And so we're hoping that, you know, with some porting, we know what kind of numbers guys are getting, you know, 235 or something from the guys that post the from intents, and guys are posting those videos or the flow numbers. So I guess they're doing some, you know, they're doing some work. If they're going from 185 to 235, that's a pretty big jump, especially relatively speaking from your starting point. But that's actually, you know, that's not bad. It's not like a Vortec head, which I kind of wish it was. But you know, we always want more flow. But luckily, I'm hoping that given that flow, we only can really go up from there. You know, maybe not with me porting it, but maybe somebody that's good that knows what they're doing. And I have something else to show you guys too. As a matter of fact, we'll take a walk in there. So I put up the video today of the trip to the wrecking yard looking for intake manifolds because we want to run a turbo eventually, obviously on the 3800. Again, we already did once, but here is the first intake. Man, the smell of this of the oil, of the gear oil for these things is terrible. But what I did was basically, so you can see over here, the rotor pack. I gutted this. This is an older M90, and then I made this plate for it. Just a little quickie Richie style. So we'll put this on the lower manifold with a short runner and be able to run this. But somebody tell me why this is going to be super cool. Somebody let me know in the comments why this manifold. And we know that other people have used this for applications because that's fairly common to cap that end and then just run it through the lower intake manifold. But why is that setup going to be cool, and what is it going to allow me to do? I've never seen a E7 TE head, factory 5-liter head that flows 170 or 175. Maybe a GT40 head or a P head, but not an E7 TE. I've never seen one that flows anywhere near that. Don't forget to narrow the valve guide, boss. So showing you the intake manifold, what's going to be really cool about that, about the blower, is that obviously when the intake manifold is drawing air, it's going to have to draw all the air through that upper blower case, through the V opening that the blower is usually discharging air through. But what's going to be cool is we get to open the bypass valve as a secondary to add more airflow. So it'll be interesting to see, just as a test, that if we run at wide open throttle with the bypass valve closed, because this is all NA, remember, this is just, we're going to run the motor NA with that manifold, and we're going to draw air through the throttle opening and the throttle body, and it's just going to suck air through the V opening in the blower case and the upper blower case, and then go into the manifold. But if that's restrictive, we'll be able to find out. Because if we open the bypass valve and the motor makes more power, it's going to be the secondaries on the quadrajet. It's going to be awesome. If it makes more power by opening the bypass valve and allowing more airflow in there, then we know that that V opening is not big enough to support whatever power level we have NA, which I think it's going to be. But again, it's just another cool test. I hope it does something, because if it does, I'm definitely going to be in there making car noises when it does. So that will be an interesting test. Obviously, I can, because I don't care about that manifold, I can port the heck out of it. I can just cut that whole section out of there. It can mill it out. You know, you can do all kinds of stuff. Again, the opening the bypass valve will tell us if that might be necessary. And if I was going to run that as a blow-through manifold, like with a turbo, I probably would take some more steps to optimize it maybe a little bit more, maybe not have that flat plate, maybe have it be a V, or, you know, just do something and try something else to try to improve the flow rate into the lower manifold, because ultimately the lower manifold is going to kind of dictate what the power curve's doing because of the runner length and obviously the flow rate of the intake manifold. Now, you know, I kind of want to flow the manifold too and see how the manifold flows relative to the heads. That would kind of be interesting. But I was able to whip up the plate pretty quickly, and that should cover it. So as soon as we get this motor, as a matter of fact, even before I get the other manifolds, I probably will run this thing NA. So we'll run it with the blower the way it is, because it's all assembled, put it up there, run it. If it's good and it makes power and it's cooperating, I probably will take the blower off and then put this setup on, because this has the it has the lower intake manifold for that early M90 blower. So I can just do a top swap. I can take the blower off and make it NA, and then that will be kind of cool to see how much power the blower is adding. You know, because obviously guys are not going to do that they're not going to take their blower off and run it NA unless they were adding a turbo or a centrifugal blower or something else. But that will be another cool test. So is porting without the valve cut worth it at all? Yes, it definitely is. Even just when the only other porting I've ever done is I did some chamber mods. We deshrouded the valves instead of 5.3 heads, and it definitely picked up power. It had nothing to do with the valve job. And the parts that you would address in the bowl, again, have nothing to do with the valve job. The valve job could make a lot of power and a lot of airflow all by itself. And when used in conjunction with the way that a professional would do the porting, it's also very important. But there's other stuff that the average guy could do that doesn't have anything to do with a 15 angle valve job. Put a heater core inside. That's one thing that this blower setup needs, is a big air to water intercooler. I'm also probably going to chop the front off of one of the Gen 5 blowers and then put a big 3.5-inch tube on it so that I can put giant sized throttle bodies on it. Yeah, getting what are they, L36s and L26s, I think. The NA motor, if you put a blower on that, it'll have more compression, so it should make more power. I don't know why you would choose between those two, Admiral. Norman, if you just take the belt off, you're having to breathe through the rotor pack. That's pretty restrictive. Compression adds 3 to 4% per pound, or per point of compression normally. Sometimes less, sometimes more. Seems to be around there in the middle part of the compression ratios, like from 8 to 12. It seems to help quite a bit, and then beyond that, it starts helping less, and before that, it starts helping less. It's like the compression bell curve. So David, if they developed a coolant leak in the valve seat, did they port into water? Because I'm told that that's a common problem. Do you have stones or cutters there to do a valve job? No, we don't do valve jobs here. Got the top open and run a carb. Yep, you could do that. What do you think the NA motor will make? I don't know. The factory NA versions are rated at like 205. And so they probably would make 230 or 240 on the way that we run them, maybe, and maybe less than that. I would be really happy if we got 200. I don't know if we will. The L36 isn't just rear-wheel drive; it's front-wheel drive also, because they have an NA version of the front-wheel drive and a rear-wheel drive. The blower bolt to a 1990 3800. You can bolt the blower to anything. You're going to need an adapter plate because that's a different motor. Put a 471 on it. Admiral, I think that would depend on what heads they are. I think I could get more. Well, I don't know yet. I'll be able to answer that tomorrow. But I think that I can get more airflow from porting than I can from a valve job on a stock head. Am I seeing this correctly? Brodix makes a 210cc head. Not a 210cc head for the 3800. They make a V6 head, but it's for the 4.3 liter. Tim, I have seen people run these with carburetors on them in front of the throttle body deal. It's a good idea, Dan. If you're into head porting and stuff, it's good to have that stuff. Mahovitz has a bunch of that stuff over there. The Admiral, the 2V heads need to be ported. I don't think I have a junk set of heads here to cut up, but that would be helpful. I mean, I can always go get some from the wrecking yard. Did you do an M90 turbo L67? No, we did the turbo feeding the blower as a compound on the L32, not on the L67. The long runner intake will definitely gain over this short runner manifold with the blower housing on it. The SU carbs, that's right. Gotta put those on there. The 305 works fine, just like every small block. I didn't pick either intake. I'm going to test all of them. I'm going to test the composite intake and the aluminum intake, and the blower intake with the blower you know, gutted casing on it. Yeah, a sonic checker is a good idea. The porting that I'm going to do, I'm not going to be anywhere near hurting anything unless unless it's already paper thin, because I'm not going to take a bunch of material out. Yeah, Admiral, you have to see what the valve is doing. If the valve seats, it's going to work well. Does anybody know, doesn't the 3800 V6 Camaro come with a 5-speed? How strong is that? Like, could you run one of these blower motors with that trans in it in a car? It was not a Tiger. It was an Alpine. Yeah. $50 horsepower from a valve job? I would be real surprised if I want to test. I saw some of those plenum stuffer things or whatever. I'd be real surprised if changing the plenum volume had an effect after the testing that I've done. Because I ran, everybody's saying that they have a T5 in them, but I ran a T5 in my Mustang with a 302 with a Vortec on it and TFS heads and the 274 cam and some sort of Cobra kind of intake manifold, and I'm sure it made 450 at the tire, and I raced it all the time. I mean, I literally ran wide open throttle, although that's probably not going to hurt the trans. But I did not drag race it, though. I did not abuse it. Although I did occasionally drag race it, because when I had to do the events like the Foxtrot with the guys from Super Ford, we ran it at El Mirage. We ran it at a triathlon of motorsports where we had to run a road course, an oval course, and a drag strip in the same car. The oval course was interesting. Myers, if you run water meth, that should bring the charge temperature down. If this motor goes up and we run it, everything works out okay. We're going to run water meth on it. I already have it here. It's a snow like boost cooler deal. And so we'll be able to see what the change in charge temperature is and if there's a change in power associated with that. Intercoolers work really well, and that's kind of the thing that I normally recommend. But we'll test it on this thing because it's the perfect application for it, because it's a roots blower, which is inefficient. We're going to run a high boost, which it doesn't like, and the charge temperature is going to be high, and then we should be able to cool it off quite a bit with the water meth. So the Mustang maybe had different parts in it than the new one does. That's the other interesting thing is this is an L67 blower, which has a different opening in it and a different manifold. And the L32 would have a bigger opening and, should therefore, if that's the restriction, flow more air. I don't know that that's the case, because I don't know if the opening there flows more than the throttle opening does. We won't know that until we do our secondary bypass valve. Well, I plan on trying to get, that was my goal, is to find an F-body intake also. Intercoolers do work well. Run meth injection for the most cooling and bang. Just get the water out of there. Just so Zach, you didn't have a cam in it. You just had the rockers. 2.8 pulley. That's pretty small. Eric's in the house. F-body intakes were proven years ago not to work compared to the front-wheel drive ones. You could put a carburetor on those blowers. I've seen them on YouTube where they mount a carburetor with an elbow, like I tried to do with the LS, and it didn't work. It didn't work out very well. Dan, this is not a porting shop. All I have is a couple of tools from Summit. That's it. I don't have different valve sizes. I don't have any of that. All I have is the head and some porting tools and a can-do attitude. The thumbnail's upside down. The thumbnail on the video that I posted today was upside down when I first posted it, but then I fixed it. So, Admiral, you're getting do you need the lower gearing to, are you going to be pulling a lot of stuff with it? That's what's going to dictate. The mileage will go down a little bit, 410 to 430. It's still, both of them are a lot of gearing, but it could help you with, trailer pulling and stuff. Is there a 3.8 liter that would have the same bell housing as an old 283? I don't know that. I don't know if they do. I don't think the Grand National one does. This one doesn't. Does anybody else out there know if it does it? Are there any 3.8s that share the bell housing with a small block Chevy? Dan, you're the guy I want to send the 4200 head to you. DB, I'll put my email here if you want me to look at something. Oh man. Where are we at here? The thumbnail that I used on the video that I posted today is just because I don't have access to my Photoshop, so I couldn't put the normal words and phrases and stuff, and I couldn't do any of the overlays or any of that. But I wanted to get the video up. The 4.3 liter definitely has the small block Chevy bell housing, but I don't think any of the 3800s do, or the 3.8 liters. I don't know which one is the best American-made V6 or inline six for power. The 4200 looks like it's pretty good. I think some of the V6 stuff would make even more, especially some of the later things. Yeah, Chevy did make a 2.8. Yeah, if you're going to turbo it, Admiral, then you don't need the gearing. The RB would be nice in the 240. They look good. I like those. Yeah, grooves. That's a really, really long, involved answer. The EcoBoost, those motors are good. So, John, are you talking about burning yourself with each one of those? No 2.2 updates since last night. I haven't done any Toyota V8s or Nissan V8s. Not on the engine dyno. My daily driver is a Silverado, which is, if you saw in the video of the junkyard run, I was over looking for a latch for it, a door latch. I still need to get the interior door, the pull handle on the driver's side, and I won't find any of those. All of the door panels and all the wrecking yards I've been to are all gone. Dan, I did replace the water pump on the truck. The water pump was bad. It was leaking out of a hole in the water pump. The gaskets were not bad though. The only thing I know about Tesla is that electric motors make a lot of torque, and that I wish I would have bought stock in it a long time ago. So should we run the really loud exhaust test then now on the cylinder head? If you get E85 or some variant of that, it will make more power than just regular race gas. We don't run a lot of race gas here anymore. They have some Sunoco stuff over here, but it's expensive to do a lot of testing with. Is a Challenger drag pack is that like a Copo, or is it actually a street car? Tyler, the first thing you need to decide is how much power you want to make. And then you got to pick the turbo accordingly. And then you pick the other things that are going into that turbo. You know, you can adjust the hot side to get response rate. We have run aviation fuel on some stuff, but it's not. I don't recommend it. Yeah, I have seen Calvin's videos. I watch this stuff. It's really good. Cameron, that all sounds like a good combination. I didn't know they had all that stuff for a 3.4. Yeah, Tim, I agree. 10 times the price is not it's not reasonable for me. Yeah, I have a low lead story. When I was doing the Bonneville car with the guys from Volkswagen, they, for whatever reason, it's cost them $1 million to do it, but they wanted to run the, they wanted to do the motor. They didn't want me to do the motor. I don't know. What can you say? So they ran it on their durability dyno. So they ran it for 24 hours. I'm like, why are you doing that? A Bonneville run lasts a minute and a half or 2 minutes. We don't care if it lasts 24 hours at wide open throttle. It doesn't have to do that. In fact, we probably would rather that it doesn't do that. But they ended up blowing it up at least once. It might have been twice, because they said, well, what kind of fuel do you run it on? We said, well, we run it on somewhere between 112 and 118 octane, depending on what they have out at Bonneville at the time and what class we're running in. And so they said, well, where do we get high octane fuel? They're in Germany. These are the people that won Le Mans with their Audis, like 15 times. I said, don't you have any places around you, any race shops or anything around you? And we have an airport. I said, well, we're going to go get some aviation fuel. I'm like, oh, that's not a good idea. I think it was 100 that they got, and it was leaded 100. And they blew the motor up. Not a good idea. No, we weren't running a air-cooled VW. We were running the GSR, a high zoot version. They built the 496. What was the total price? I have no idea. I haven't ever been to Le Mans. My buddy Bernie, that was the crew chief for my World Challenge stuff, he's crewed there with a couple of Celine cars. He was a crew chief there, and he's done Daytona and all the places. I'd like to go. I think that would be cool. Looking at building small block and interested in putting Vortec heads on it, but was wondering like if 706 or 243 heads are considered Vortec or LS. If you have a small block, a Vortec head that's a whole different engine family than the LS. So a 706 or a 243 head won't work on the earlier Vortec small blocks. And not only did they put the motor on the dyno, they put the drivetrain on there because it was a hybrid and a transmission. And so they ran. I'm like, yeah, do you know how much money you guys just spent? That's more than the whole budget for Le Mans or for Bonneville. What are your thoughts on LS piston slap? It should not be excessive, but my truck makes noise. It's got 300,000 on it. Yeah, Dan, I don't know where they were. He was talking to them, the people that worked, and I don't know if they were doing this after hours or what the deal was. He was talking to them at the VW factory, wherever, I don't even know which one it was. The motors are labeled Vortec. They have the word Vortec on them, but what people designate the Vortec motor is like the L31 small blocks and the, what is it, the L09 or something like that, the 305 version. I don't have a shop. I flip the pistons in the truck. I'd like to flip them over and put different ones in there. Tom, finally, man, we can all stop talking about you now. You can definitely turbo a V6 Camaro. Yeah, I've seen guys run the aviation fuel, especially in older. It was pretty popular for guys to run it in some of the real high compression muscle car stuff. Zach, I'm happy to help. Is it better to get a custom grind? What's an LS 98 millimeter camshaft? I don't know what that is. If you have a street car, even if you have a race car, very few people need a custom ground cam. I do have an Instagram page and a Facebook page. It's my name. Yep, knurl them. Knurl the guides and knurl the skirts. We have a couple of gas stations by here, that one of them that sold Union 76 stuff, and they had race fuel. We used to go get it before we'd go to Bonneville, so we would go buy jugs of it from them. but we would only buy 15 or 20 gallons. We'll start off with the GT45 turbo probably, or maybe a GT35 on the 3800, and then go up as need be. Yeah, the person that asked about the Instagram page, I post the promos for the videos I do up on Instagram, and then sometimes just weird stuff like with the blown up Hemi. That was sad. Hopefully I didn't hurt the head. It doesn't look like I did. I'm hoping that the piston, the rod broke, and the piston broke and wedged itself. But I'm gonna have the valves checked just to make sure that none of them are bent. I do have the 7875. I think it's going to be a little big for this NA power level, but you know, it would eventually come up. The 224, 232 cam fits, I think, in the stock piston to valve clearance on a small block Ford. I don't think, Mike, I don't think we would get to the maximum power of this motor with a GT45. The 3800 that I just flow tested has stock valves in it. So David, you ran a GT3582R. Was that a real Garrett one, or was it a offshore like we have? We have some, Westech has some Sunoco stuff over there. Do I sell any of the junkyard engines that I have? No. You wouldn't want them, usually we break them. I don't know. Does anybody know what the valve stem size is? I could measure the, I think I can pull a valve out and measure it. So here, can you see that? No. I'll put it over here so you can see the valve. I gotta agree with the mic. All right, so let's see here. $310,000, $311,000. Yeah. So I don't have that in metric. Can you get an aluminum 3800 V6 rear-wheel drive intake manifold from Australia? There are a dime a dozen here. If only I was in Australia. Tim, 300 and what did I say? 312,000, 311,000. Weimaraners. Nice. The guys from Australia sent me a, one of the slant 6 intake manifolds. Dulcich ran one recently. The 8mm is not the same as 5/16, but the sockets work. Oh, you're measuring valve guys. It's got to be closer than that, right? I'd have to measure the length on the valve too. Do you still have that 4.6? Which 4.6 supercharger? The Vortec I was talking about last night, the reverse rotation one? If that's the one you're talking about, yes, I still have it. So I'll see if it's a. Now that I know that we're talking about absolutes here. It's a hair over 312. That's only a dial caliper. What do you expect? So it is supposed to be an 8mm one? Well, I can measure. I don't know if I have a. I don't think I have an LS head laying around here anywhere. I do over at my storage. I could grab one and see. I don't know about the valve length though. What's the? I don't know, like 4710 is 4710 is the total length. So anybody have any idea how long the LS valve is? Putting in the if it's the same length, putting in the 706 862 intake valve should be good. Ooh, I almost dropped it. See, this is what we have. I just grabbed because I thought we were talking about rough estimates. We do a turbo propane? No, I won't do that. Not on the 3800. We got enough stuff to do. Oh, people are arguing about math. Midwest, the 3.8 liter and the 3800, which is what that Camaro is that we're running here, if that's the one you're talking about, they're completely different engine families. You can put a turbo on any motor though, but not specifically the Grand National stuff. Yeah, the L67 is supposed to be a 1.8, 1.80, and the L32 is supposed to be 1.83 is what I read on there. I haven't measured them. I should have because I have both of them. But now that the head's on there, this one is definitely, well, I can measure this. That's the exhaust valve. Well, the intake valve from the heads that came off the L67 are 1.83. Almost time for valve guide reading. I don't think that the valve guides actually seem pretty good, but we could, if we have to fit a different size valve in there, I definitely would do that. A 502 big block is good. Ford Racing Supercharger. Oh, the one that I did the video on? No, that doesn't exist. They don't offer that blower anymore. Did anybody ever really hop up the Super Coupe motors? Have you tried EFI setup on that L67? It has an EFI on it already. Okay, guys, last 2 minutes. I got to get going. Lots and lots to do. MLS head gaskets on small block Chevys leak coolant. Is that a statement or is that a question? We've run MLS head gaskets on our Chevys and they don't leak coolant as long as you prep the surfaces correctly. What are your thoughts on the LS Night Fury cam? I'm a big fan of Night Furies. Does that cam fit stock piston to valve clearance? And my other question is, with 629 lift, is it going to be stable? Yeah, the first gen SHO Taurus would be really cool. I did like those motors, especially after being in one and having it revved to 10,000 RPM. It's pretty impressive. Okay, guys, I got to get going. Thank you all for showing up. I got to make sure I put the calipers away. But I do plan on, when we have these heads ported properly, not by me, but I'm going to port the heads tonight and do whatever I can do, which is maybe not very much. We don't know. Maybe it's a big waste of time. But when we have them done, they will have bigger valves. They're going to have at least like a 1.900, probably 1.89. It would be cool if the LS valve is like some sort of direct fit. If the length is right, even if we have to change the guide inside diameter, that's not a big deal because that head has to go to the machine shop anyway. They would have to go to be, I would want them to be surfaced and we probably would want to put new seats in them and do a good valve job on it anyway. And if we're going to port them, all of that stuff is going to have to be done, because we're definitely going to put multi-angle valve jobs on it, bigger valves, and then obviously full porting, better than whatever it is I do tonight. But you guys will find out tomorrow, because that's when I'm going to post a video. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you all tomorrow.